Thank you.
Thanks. So how's it going? Everybody can hear me back there? Yeah? Sound good? Welcome. I am Cristian Serje. I'm a software engineer currently working in a company based in Munich, in Germany, in Check24. I've been working the first time I worked in mobile apps, it was like 10 years ago, but I switched to backend and I've been moving from one side to other, but now I'm like completely working in Android, sometimes doing some services in backend as well. And so, yeah, I'm originally from Colombia. You can find all of my information, like I'm pretty much in all of the social media, so you can find me as a Serje, but not in Twitter. In Twitter, somebody stole my name and I'm Serje Cristian, which I hated, like the OCD is striking there. But yeah, anyways, I don't tweet that much, but maybe because of that, because it's not what I'm used to. So yeah, anyways, you can find me in pretty much all of the social medias like Serje. So yeah, today we're gonna talk about code generation with annotation processing. And how it can make like your life like really simple and you can save a lot of time, and it's like a lot of advantages to just let the machine make a lot of work for you. So which one of you have used maybe Butterknife? Yeah, like pretty much everyone, and Dagger or something as well, yeah. So if we are lucky, you will know how these frameworks work in the background. And if you're like really lucky, maybe after this presentation, you can write your own, your own Butterknife, maybe pancake knife or something as a competition. So let's start. So we're going to talk about annotation processing, right? So we have to first have the proper idea of how it is and what annotations are. But I'm just going to like quickly go through because we have worked with annotations like a lot, at least the built-in annotations like and override and so just the official definition about annotations is annotations, a form of metadata, provide data about a program that is not a part of the program itself. Annotations have no direct effect on the operation of the code, they annotate. So all of that, it basically means like the annotation gives you it provides metadata for Java code. It also describes the usage of an element. As I say, like pretty much you have seen the deprecated and override and and it also describes the nature of an element for like those that have worked in backend like web service and so on. So that's the things that we see in annotations, But then if we want to write our own annotation, how you will do it is quite simple actually. And this is how you do your custom annotation. This is a struct of an annotation that I will show later in a small demo app that I wrote. And this is pretty simple. It's like for you to write your own custom annotation, you just do as a normal interface. You write public interface, the name of the annotation. The only difference is that you will prefix interface with the @ and that is already a custom annotation. It has also another two attributes, which is the target. The target is basically that. It's gonna tell the annotation, it's like a rule saying the annotation what you can annotate. In this case is type, so it means that this annotation, it can just annotate classes, but you can add several targets. A good example for that is inject. I don't know if you have used that annotation. Inject, it works for the same annotation, it works for parameters, for methods, for fields, for classes, so you can add more than one target there. It has also retention, and retention is also that it will tell the JVM like how long it should retain that annotation for it, because maybe you don't need that annotation on runtime, maybe you just in compilation time and so on and so forth. So in this case, I have source, which it means that I don't need it on runtime. It will be just discarded by the compiler. You can also use a class and runtime beside source. So yeah, before I continue with everything, I will just tell a little story. How I decided, like, you know what, I will start doing my own annotation processing because why you should really need it. So I'm gonna tell you a little story. It was like a while ago, and the product manager told me, you know what, you have to do a formulary. I thought that it was a simple formulary. There were like a lot of views, edit views, there were drop downs, you name it. There was like a normal formulary, but actually it was more complicated than that. It had a lot of constraint, it had validation. I had to do a lot of stuff with those views that actually were making like a lot more complicated the supposedly simple view that I wanted to do. And the formulary were like a lot of pages and everything was like a mess. So I was like, you know what, I think this is not actually, I was thinking that I cannot solve it in a normal way that I'm used to. So this is more or less what I had to do. I had to create a complicated form. I had to validate classes, validate methods, fields. It had also immediate validation. It means like, if I wanted to go from one edit text to another, I had to validate right away the edit text that I left, you know, like when it loses focus. So I had to add observer, view tree observer, you know, so a lot of play code, and it was like a mess. So all of those changes, and that was just for one field, but I had to do it for every field. We had like a lot of custom views. So all of those changes will have been like really hard to track and to maintain because, you know, the formula is just growing and the logic, and so it was just a mess if I would have done it in a normal way. So this is an example of a simple custom view that I had to do. It's just it's a date picker, but we don't use like the normal date picker like the default from Android. So this is a custom date picker. You see that I'm using the Butterknife, like normal thing. The date picker has like an edit text for the day, for the month, and for the year, and it should also show an error message below, like if there's something wrong or not. So just to have an idea, this is more or less what it had to do, that specific date picker, because you could have like different date pickers with different constraints. But this specific date picker, I had to, of course, check if the day was real. A real day cannot be like 32 or something. A month, it have to not be negative, not more than 12, and so on. The year as well, and I had to check if the whole text is a real valid date, so it could not be, I don't know, 31 of February or something. It also constraints, like I should verify like if it's lower than the current date, maybe show an error. If it's lower than another date picker, also show another error, and compare dates and show different errors messages depending of in which constraint it failed. So long story short, it was, if you want to do that like in a normal way of programming, you will have to, you know, create the conditions, convert it to a calendar, I don't know, compare different dates, and maybe create an utility. I don't know, but you will have to find a way of doing it, but just for this one. But you have another view that will have different constraints, so you'll have to do it once again, or maybe pass to the utility that you want to create. And this is just for this date picker. Like I said, we have lots of different views, and all of them have different ways of validation. It will just make everything complicated. So then I was like, okay, I think that I will have to find a framework to do that. I started to Google it and try to find something that will make my life easier to solve it. And I couldn't find anything. I found some things, but most of the frameworks out there, they were using reflection, and you know how reflection is like kind of evil with mobiles. So I was like, no, it's not really fitting with the needs that I wanted. So I was like, okay, you know, no pain, no gain. I will have to write my own annotation processor, because I knew how already those frameworks kind of work in the background, like Dagger, Butterknife, and so. But I never wrote my own annotation processor. I was like, okay, I will just do it and have an even better understanding of how those framework works. And that's exactly what I did. And at the end, this is my last result. So you see, I have the custom date picker and have like 3 custom annotations that I did, and they are like constraints, and I really don't have to do anything else. The code is going to be generated. I mean, even though you have no idea about my code, you can see pretty much what that view is doing. It's like, it will verify if it's a date, otherwise I will show the error. It will verify if it's a min date, then it will show the day selected cannot be older than the present day. And if it's a max date, it can be 2007 days in the future. If it passes, then it will show an error. The day selected can be more than 66 months from now. So it's like pretty self-explanatory. It's like you see the code and you just have the view. It will show you right away what are the constraints. You don't have to go through the code, which utility you're checking and stuff. But that is already there, and you don't have to care about anything anymore. I mean, the code is pretty much self-explanatory. I think that later there will be a talk about it, like how to make your code readable. And that's like pretty readable in my eyes. So this is what I came. So what I tell you this story. It's like for you to know what are the pros and cons, like why you should use it, or you should ask yourself like maybe it can fit on my project or not. So these are it should be your motivations to go ahead and use annotation processing. It's like, of course, one of the main ones is like you will avoid boilerplate. I mean, we know how Java is like boilerplate house. I mean, that's why most of the people, a lot of people are moving Kotlin and stuff, because we of those boilerplate, you know. So it will just help you a lot. You don't have to worry about this boilerplate code. As I said, you will understand how other frameworks such as Dagger, Butterknife, or Serje work in the background, because even though you are using it, maybe you are not, you just see the code and you're like, okay, it's working, but why? You know, it should have some, it has some logic going behind. You can worry in things that really matter. That's important as well, because you don't have, like in my case, I had to worry about validation and about all of these observers and stuff. I just have to worry once, and once it was written, I don't care anymore. I can just worry about the services, about the things that are going to the backend and so on. So worry about things that really matter more than validation views and stuff. It has a fast code generation, and of course no reflection, which I say like is really good. I mean, the mobile, it will thank you a lot for that. I mean, I'm not saying that reflection is bad. You can use reflection. I mean, it's there for a reason, but we know that, I mean, it's not the same that when it's running in runtime, because every device will run in a different way. So it's better if you just do it in compile time and it has the code and it's packed and ready to go. It's highly configurable. I mean, just imagine you have, it's just like a class that you are writing from scratch. So whatever you write there, if you want more methods, like whatever configuration, it will be already in the class. So it's highly configurable. A speed of development, that is like a huge pro, because, yeah, I mean, as I said before, okay, I'm recharged. So, speed of development, because of course, yeah, you don't have to worry about a lot of things, like I said, and then the code will be there. Keep in mind that just because the code is going to exist, it doesn't mean that your lines of the total code of the app is going to be less, or you will have less methods. I mean, the code is going to exist, and it's just that you will not have to worry about it. It's just going to be by the machine, but the lines of codes are going to be there. So, and it's scalable. Like I say, just write whatever you want, create more methods, more variables, whatever, in the processor, and the processor is going to do it for you. And this is actually really important, that you can trust the generated code. You just have to test it once, and I'm pretty sure the machine will write it, like whatever you say to write, the machine will write it for you, and you don't have to worry, like maybe you will have like a typo or a copy paste error or whatever. In this case, you say to the machine, whatever it comes, just write this, and the machine will write it for you. And also there is like, there are some utilities, like for example, the messenger. I will talk about it later, that you can also say to the third-party app, in this case, your application, like, you know what, you forgot to annotate this, and you can have like kind of, you know, like information going backwards for the developer to know, like, oh, okay, I did something wrong or whatever. I will show something like that in the demo app. So, yeah. First, let's talk about the APT. The APT is the Android processing tool. It is built on the Java C, and what it basically does is like it will take an input file that you have, and from the input file will tell, like, you know what, check all of the classes that are annotated with this annotation, and it will retrieve you elements that elements that represent those classes. This is, you here I will explain later what are elements, because are not real classes, but here, later I will explain, I will have a better idea about what it is. So everything happens in compile time. As I said before, you will know how it works. Like whenever you're compiling your application, you don't have to worry about any runtime because it's not using reflection. It was introduced on Java 5, but it was like quite not ready, and the real like rich and the API came with Java 6, I think in December 2006. So yeah, and it's a really powerful tool. Actually, it was like pretty much ignored for a while until like the last couple of years, because at the beginning people were like, oh yeah, there's a tool, but nobody really knew until now. With it is like increasing like popularity a lot. The annotation, so in Resume, the annotation processing tool, what it does is like it lets you generate new Java files at build time. Look, that this is important. It's like it lets you generate new Java files, but you cannot modify classes that you already wrote. Well, in fact, it's like you can modify them, but it's like with a hack. You can, after it's compiled, you can modify the bytecode, like for example, Project Lombok does, but it's not like the standard way of doing it. So let's stick to the generate new Java files and in build time, and we can avoid the user reflection. Like I said, it's a huge pro. And also just cost performance degradation on build time. Just because it's in build time, remember it's a different Java app. It doesn't mean that you can write just any code. Just try to write it as a normal Java application, because still you want to perform well, and you don't want to wait like half an hour to compile or something, right? So now we'll show about a bit in the demo app. We have 3 modules, which is the normal a module which has the annotations, another one that is the compiler module, that is important one, and the other module where I have app. Now let's talk about the compiler module. It is a simple plugin Java. You know that we are used to, for those in Android, you are used to do like the apply Android. In this case, it's a Java app because it's gonna run on your machine. It's not related with Android at all. So that's why you do apply plugin Java instead of Android. It contains the processor, so it contains the class that actually is gonna build your final class, and it executes on its own Java virtual machine. That is actually quite important because the Java C, it executes its own Java virtual machine for the processor, and then you can add everything you want there. You can, like if you want to use Java with the thousands of methods that it has, or any other library to make your processor work faster or whatever, you don't have to worry that any of those libraries are going to go to your final APK, because this is nothing related with your final APKs, like even a different Java virtual machine. So just do whatever you want in the Java virtual machine that at the end is not going to affect your APK. And now talk about these elements that I was telling you before. In here you have to change a little bit your mindset. You know that we are used to talk about classes, objects, instance, and so. In this case, since it's in compile time, there are no instances yet. They are not like classes and so. So you have to work with like representation of a class, and so those ones are called elements in here, and the processor is just gonna work with elements. This is an example. For example, a package is a package element, a class is a type element, variable element, and so on and so forth. Later I will show you more or less how it works, but this is a quite not nice API. I mean, it have a little bit of learning curve. I would say like it's the cousin of the reflection API. But yeah, you just have to take this like, let's say that you have an XML file, and that you have the DOM, and you can go to the child, and the child know the parent, and so on and so forth. So it's the same thing here, kind of, but with elements. From the element you can go to a child, and so on. This is an extract of the demo app as well. And what it's doing here, this is the type element over there. It is the class that it was annotated. And what I'm doing here is that I'm gonna go through all of the fields that class element has. So I'm just gonna ignore all of the fields that don't have the annotation bind value. And if it has the annotation bind value, I will add the array. It's pretty straightforward. So with get enclosed elements, I just say like, give me all of your childs, basically, and I just iterate through them. Whenever it doesn't have the bind value annotation, I just ignore it. Whenever it has it, then I add it on the list. I will show how it works later. And now we have the processor. This is where the money is, the real deal. So if you want to buy a processor, you just have to extend an abstract processor. These are the important methods that you have to override. The first one is get support annotation types. What it does is like, it's just saying like, okay, the abstract processor, you should look for this or this annotation. So yeah, exactly that, like which annotations the processor supports. You have the get supported source version, which is telling the processor like which SDK you should use. I recommend just use the source version latest supported, and that's it. It has also the method init, which it has the processing environment. This processing environment gives you some utilities to build your final file. It has the get filer, for example, the messenger that I mentioned before, that is to send messages to your app. Because remember, this is running in a different virtual machine, and somehow you want to send messages also to the app that is executing it. And it has the main method that is process, that of course is processing the annotations. I will resume all of this stuff. I will resume it in this, because since Java 7, you can also, instead of overriding those methods, you can also annotate them. And we are talking about annotation, so just to make it nicer, I just resume it in this. So you have over there the supported source version, last supported, as I said, and support annotation types. In this, you have to always write your fully qualified name. In this case, the package, and then your annotation. And that's it. And the process, like I mentioned before, I can get all of the elements that represent classes that have this annotation, in this case, your annotation. So this get element annotated with is going to return me a collection of elements that have this annotation, right? So, but first we have to tell to the service loader, like, you know what, I have a processor, so you should run it. So this is how you tell to the service loader that, that you wrote an annotation. It's quite simple as well. You just have to go create a file on resources on metainf services, and this file, JavaX annotation processing processor. It's just a normal file, and in there, you're gonna write the fully qualified name of your processor. And that's it. If you have more than one processor, you can create a new line and also write the new processor over there. With that, it is enough, and then the service loader will know where your processor is. Or there is an easier option to use AutoService. It's a library from Google. And it's just enough doing AutoService and annotate your processor, and that one it will create the file that I just mentioned before. But I mean, just create the file is not a big deal. Create the file, put the name of, the fully qualified name of the processor, and it will work. Error handling, this is, like I mentioned before, there is a messenger that is coming in the processing environment, and this is to show to the app like friendly messages. So in the demo app, if we have time as well, I will just try to show some errors on the application that is running the processor. And we have to remember that it's not an exception. They are like normal exceptions on the processor, and they are the messenger. The messenger is going to send it to the application, but the exception is going to throw an exception to the processing itself, and it will close the whole processing tool. So the processor should, if you want to do error handling, the processor should still return something. It means that you cannot create an exception because it will crash, and it will not return the friendly message that you want to return. So it should everything finish properly, but return a message instead of an exception. It is like kind of a logger, but a bit different. So it is just like to let you know to the executor, like, okay, you know what, there's something wrong. And you do it like this. You do processing environment, you get the messenger, and print a message. So in this case, I will show an error to the app that is trying to execute my processor. I will show there should be at least one field binded. And that's pretty much it. So tools for you to keep in mind, we have a Java Poet. Java Poet is from Square. I will show some example about Java Poet. What it does is a tool to help you write the final Java file. But we are not going to use it today. I'm going to use the old-fashioned style, a string concatenation, a string builder, and build my own class. But just for you to know and to keep it in mind. There's also a Google Java formatter that it does that. It formats your code to be like nice and like visually cool. And the AutoService that I mentioned already before. So this is more or less an introduction for Java Poet. You have normal, hello world main, and this is how you will create it. So this is why I didn't want to mention it, because it's like another learning curve. We are talking about processors mainly, and you have to learn how it works, the Java Poet here as well. But it's just basically like builders, and it works with models. So with all this, you can create your own class. But today we are just gonna do string concatenations. And so I'll talk no action. Let's then show some example. How long do we have? Like 10? Okay, 10 minutes. So I will try to be quick. Good. So in this example, this is a quite simple example. First, I'm going to show it how it works, like without annotation processing at all. I didn't want to create the typical hello world. I wanted to do something like nicer for you, like or something like quite usable better. So in this case, I'm just going to show an example. Like there's an activity, and the product manager told me, like, I want to get all of the fields with the value that those fields has and send them to the server. So I did a simple thing. Here it is. I have some fields, some edit text. Then I want to open the next activity. I add them, I create my own bundle. I put them as an extra, and I add the name of the fields and the value. So this is how it works. It's like the normal way of doing it. I add some code here, some information, email, and then I send it. And the other activity opens. Oh, I think that you cannot see that much, right? Well, anyways, in those things, it's just showing the name, the values of every field that it had. So, but then the product manager said, like, this thing, it has to be in a lot of more activities. Or maybe let's say that you want to, can you see there? Maybe, should I, there, better? So, maybe they say, like, what, I don't want it to call address edit, but I want to call it address edit text. So now it will be like address edit text. But when you modify that, you really don't modify the name of that is gonna pass to the server. And you're like, okay, you have to edit also this, and then also with the name and also and so on and so forth. And you don't have that, and this is just for one class, but maybe you have a lot more. Here you just have 4 fields, maybe you have 10. And then you are like, okay, you know what, I don't want you modify, and maybe you have a typo or whatever, you just want the machine to do it for you. So you're like, okay, I will write my own processor. And here it is. So first, I will show you the 2 annotations that I did, that I was showing that I show on the slides. So here I have a bind value. So basically what it's going to say to the processor is like, if there is a field with bind value, send it to the server. So it would be shown in the second activity. And you have a bundle bind. It's another annotation, but it's for classes. So what it's going to tell to the processor is like, as you saw, I show it also on the slides. It's going to tell, like, whenever there is a class with this bundle bind, then try to look for bind values and send it to the second activity. So it's more or less like that. Now I'm going to show the processor. The processor is incomplete on purpose, just because I want to show you what else to write. And here it is. The get elements annotated with, like I said before, it's just gonna return the elements that are annotated with bundle bind. So I want to the main activity to be checked, so I will have to annotate it here. So I will just add bundle bind here. That's pretty much it. So with adding bundle bind here, the processor should read that element or that class. But wait, I forgot also here. Remember, we have to say to the processor which annotations are supported. So then let's add it here, support annotation types, and then add here the bundle bind. There is a trick here to get the fully qualified name. For those that don't know, you can just right-click and copy reference, and just write it here. And that's it. So now the processor will know that it should look for, and it supports the bundle bind annotations. So let's go forward. We have the bundle. If there's not, then it will close it, return false. That is right. That is okay. And then I will iterate for all of those elements that it returns. In this case, I just have the main activity. So it will create a new class for that main activity. Here, current class, you see that it's a type element. It will, it basically represents that class. So in this case, the main activity, I get the target package. So the package where that activity is. And I get my source class. And I start writing the code. You see here I have the typical header like the author, Cristian, and stuff, like do not modify and all that. So just typical string concatenations, there is no trick here. And now I want to get all of the childs that have the bind value that I want to send into the second activity. That I do it through what I show on the slides already. So basically I take the class, what it represents the class, which is the type element, and try to add on an array all of the values that have bind value. So far so good, I added there, and then I will create the final method that is gonna open the next activity. You see here is pretty much like a string, like fixed. So I will create a static method that is open activity with the name of the source class, and it will create the intent. So pretty much what I had there, but it's just gonna create the code for me, and it's gonna put in the intent the extra with the element name and so on. And at the end, it will start the activity. And that's pretty much it. That is gonna create already a class and the code that I need. At the end, I will just write the file here. You see, I will use the getFiler that I mentioned before, and that's it. I just put there the string, and it will create the class for me. So let's see if it works. But I still need something here. The processor is not registered. You see that I have here on I mentioned before, you cannot see, the meta services. So I just have to write here the reference, and that's it. This is the bundled processor. So I just created the file that I say for the service loader to recognize that there's a new processor. And that's pretty much it. So if we see in the processor, it will create me a class, the class that is annotated, and it will add bundle binder at the end. So it should create me, if everything goes all right, it should create me a main activity bundle binder, right? If I look here, so you see that I'm not cheating. I look here, I will try main activity, and there is no bundle binder. There is just main activity and something else done by Butterknife. And I want to remove also all of this code that I really don't need anymore, because it should be generated by the processor. So let's just remove this code. And I have to add which fields I want to send to the second activity. So this is bind value. I want to send the address, and maybe I just want to send also the name. That's it. I just want to send those two. And so here it is. Let's build it. And now the processor should create me the main. So if I look here, you see? Now there is the main bundle binder right there. You see? And it created me this. It was auto-create. I didn't do anything. It already had me the information that I need, just because I annotated that before. It has already the address, edit text, name, and it will start the activity for me. So I just have to do main activity, bundle binder, and then start the open activity that it was the class that the method that it generated for me. I will pass this and the activity that is going to open. And that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it. So if everything goes all right, I recompile here. It loads this again. And now you will see that, or if you can, you will see that actually it's just gonna send me to the next page those fields that were annotated. So you see now there are just two because it's the address and name edit. You see how readable it is now? I know that it will bind the address edit and the name edit. It will take the name, so if I change the name of the variable, it will even do it because the processor was configured to always use the name of the variable. And here, I don't have to care about bundle or anything. I just open the activity and the code is gonna be there anyways. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I have some, I could show also some other examples of how the error handling it works, and we could also modify the processor, but I think that we are out of time. How long do we have? Maybe show another example. 3 minutes? Okay, good. So look, that in here, I could do something like this. I could add another, let's say, for the last name, I also want to add it. I want to bind the value. So if I add it here, and I don't fill it in, which one is, last name is here, and I don't fill it in, it will appear still there. It appears that it has no value. It appears the edit text and stuff. So the product manager told me, don't send me anything that is empty. So okay, I will have to modify my processor. So it is quite simple. Just go to the processor, the one that is generating my code, and I will create a condition here. So it will be something like if the element, you see like typical string concatenation, if element dot get text length, can you see there? Yeah. Length is, so basically if it's not empty, then use it. But here I have to add the activity, so string activity, and that's it. So just doing this, look, no, it's all right. Yeah, true. Yeah, so get text and look how it is the binder now. This is the code that it was generated. But if I build it again, so now the processor is gonna generate another code, and it's gonna, you see now, it just create the conditions for me. I didn't have to do anything else. It was like just modifying the processor. And it's as simple as that. Now I will run again the app. Here you see that now there is the second field, but now if I don't fill it in, the last name, or any other name, then it should not show it. Now you see that there are two, so it's already, the condition is already modified. And as that, you can just modify as much as you want. Like I said, it's pretty much scalable. It's like you are writing a class from scratch, you see, it's like adding the conditions and stuff. It's just like matter of testing and knowing what you have to do. The processor anyways is gonna do, and it's gonna create the class with the rules that you want. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you have, let's see, wait, I will run here, and done. So yeah, any questions? I wanted to show more examples, but we have lack of time. I wanted to modify a little bit more the processor, but because of lack of time, we are not going to. So yeah.
First of all, let's say thank you to Cristian.
Thanks.
And yeah, please raise your hands and I will give you the microphone. Yep, sure.
Put your hands up. Put your hands up.
Thanks for that. Okay. Thanks for talking. And can you please answer the question? Is it possible to debug the pre-processing code?
Yeah, good question. You mean the code that it was generated, or the processor?
The processor code.
Yeah, it is possible. You just have to create like somehow like when you are creating like a server on your IDE, and then it's possible to do it. Even though I have had some issues doing it with the new version of Android. You know that now it is included. Now you don't have to use apt and use an external library, but now you use annotation processor, and then it will compile it for you. I'm having some issues to debug it since then, but it is totally possible. Yeah. So it is a good question actually, because as I mentioned before, there is not the normal code and whatever we are used to, like the runtime, but you want to debug something that actually is gonna compile the code for you. So, but yeah, it is definitely possible.
Okay, thanks.
Hi. Well, you can unit test the code obviously, but can you do like instrumentation testing on the generated code?
Yeah, you can do pretty much, like I mentioned before, you can pretty much do everything that you want with the generated code, because the test is gonna, what you have to be sure is that the test is gonna run after the compilation. So, and that's what pretty much it happens. So.
Oh, no, I meant literally like testing from, if I add this annotation, this class would be generated, like, you know, round trip.
Yeah, that actually you could do as well. Yeah, the thing with the annotations and the code generation is like it is kind of hard to debug sometimes, but afterwards you will have the whole class created, and with that class you can verify if the class exists. Otherwise you will have exception, like class doesn't exist exception, you know. But you can do pretty much everything like you wrote it by yourself. So yeah.
Thank you.
More questions?
I didn't notice, how did you enable this code generation tool into Android project? I'm just wondering if I would like to create another Butterknife or something, how would I provide this code to the others? Should it be some kind of plugin for Gradle or something?
Yeah, okay. Like I mentioned before, in the compiler module, it is a completely different module. So it is
exactly. It's like a jar or something.
Exactly. So it's a different Java module. It creates a jar, and what it does is like you just say to in Gradle, like, you know what, compile using this module, and the module it will look from the service.
There is some kind of instruction in Gradle to use it as a code generation stuff or something.
No, there's not. Well, there is now there is.
It's not a regular dependency, right?
Yeah, it is also a dependency. You create when you do the annotation processing that is new in Android. It doesn't add it as a dependency, but it's used just for compilation. So that's why you don't add it as a dependency. You just do like compile, and you just do like annotation processing, and then it will not be included on your APK. But it will look for that module and execute it. But still, you need that library to be there. It's not going to be added on your APK, but you need it for compilation. So you have to tell Gradle, like, you know, I'm going to use this library.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Somebody? Nope. I do have a dumb question.
There's another one.
Yeah. Is it possible to extend annotation to just support conditions, as you have shown in your last example?
To use what again? Sorry.
Just mention the condition. For example, you bind in some value and send it to server, but you made change that you will skip each field which does not have a value.
Yeah.
So probably, can I just...
yes, sweet. Yeah. Like I said, you just saw that I just had to add like a condition on the processor, and the processor is going to create the code for me. So the same way as I did that condition, you can create any condition you want. Like add what whatever is not annotated, or create some other annotations, and then you can just like write anything you want, and the processor you have to play with the elements. Like I say, that representation of the class and the representation of the fields. Just play with it, but you can definitely, everything that is annotated, everything that is not annotated, all of that information, you have it there somehow. And with that, you can just create your code like add this, add the other, so just play with it. But it is possible.
Thank you. And if you don't mind, yet another question.
Thank you for your speech. It was very interesting, especially for iOS developer.
Yeah.
I had some experience with code generation using Swagger code gen, you know?
Using what, sorry?
Swagger. Swagger code generation tool. It's somehow, you have a mustache file with tons of brackets and some syntax. My question is, what this tool use under the hood, or it's just runtime? So I mean, will this annotation tool will create some file as a placeholder for output code?
I'm not sure if I get your question.
I suppose the question was, do you need to provide some kind of file where you mention the rules about code generation, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, because for example, Swagger has input file, a huge file of YAML format where you mention in the rules, and it's going to generate all stuff that you need.
Yeah.
But mostly it generates like completely from scratch all the code base that you'll need with some relations. But here, some advanced concept. I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure if I got it properly. I mean, you mean like if there is a rule to build the file? Or,
yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, the file, as I showed before, there is this utility that is the getFiler, and what it does is just like it will insert the file in any path that you write, so in any package. So that's why I had to get first the package of the class that it was annotated, or the element that it was annotated, and then use the package because I want to put it in the same package. But you can basically add the created file, you can add it anywhere and with any name, and yeah, it is just like, it's as simple as you do like file create or something. So the Java filer is just gonna put whatever, you create your own rules, you know, you say like put it here or put it there, which name, which package, the imports. It's like a completely empty board. And that's why you have to write it, and that's why I had to use the library to indent it and so on. But there is no actually...
And the syntax only for Java, yes?
Yeah.
Only?
Yeah, exactly.
No Kotlin?
No, you could create Kotlin as well. Like I'm saying, it's just an empty file. You saw that I wrote in Java, the processor, I told them, like, you know, write in Java, but you can write any file you want. You can write in Kotlin as well. And the Kotlin file will just go to the package.
Is it possible to write processor in Kotlin?
It's possible to
Is it possible to write a processor in Kotlin?
I think so, yeah. I haven't tried, but I think it is possible. I mean, yeah, I haven't wrote it, but I will say so. I mean, after all this, if the service loader, you specify the processor, somehow it should work. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say for generating Kotlin code, you need to grab an option, and then that's the path where you should put your Kotlin files, and then they get compiled.
Yeah.
It's a bit different than Java, but still totally doable.
Yeah, so yeah, you see the Kotlin experts say, yeah, it is indeed possible, yeah. Some other questions?
Yeah, that's it. So let's say thank you once again to Cristian.
Thanks.